Now Tommy was terrific, amazing baseball. Glendening was prolific. Bud and Sham and Agee stood the test. And the glider and the crane, they were the vets. I'm talking baseball. Baseball and the Mets.
Well, let me tell you, that song resonates because, if you are a New Yorker and you know the history of the Mets, obviously 1969 is one of the ones for the history books, both for the Jets and the Mets. But for the Mets, I can't imagine, and I wish I was there for that year in 1969, when the Mets and the Man on the Moon all happened at once in that summer, culminating with a huge upset World Series victory against said Earl Weaver and the Orioles. Now, that was Terry Cashman. And why I played that is because he honored Buddy Harrelson in that song. That's how big a player Bud Harrelson was for the Mets, that he even made it into a Terry Cashman classic. But what I'm here to tell you today is that, and you might know this as well, but beyond being the Mets legend, Buddy Harrelson was just a really good guy. And I'm releasing this at 3 o'clock today to talk about the power of 3. That was the number Buddy Harrelson wore. It's the number the Ducks have retired as their first manager, their co-founder. And I have to believe in 1999 and 2000, when it was developed, that the excitement around the Ducks forming in Suffolk County really was the impact Buddy Harrelson made and will forever have made, because that impact has drawn in 9 million plus fans and has built up a community, and they only do it with 30 employees. I was looking this up. The Ducks currently have about 30 employees, which is a very small operation, but look how much good they're doing, and look who started it. Buddy Harrelson started that by co-founding it, along with a couple other people, and that's how he's known now. He, of course, is known as being a Met legend to the outside world, but to those who know Buddy, he knows he was a philanthropist, a giver, and even as he was becoming more and more inflicted with this Alzheimer's, he was a spokesperson for the Alzheimer's Foundation. I mean, my dad and I saw him at walks. We saw him at different fundraisers for the Alzheimer's Foundation. I mean, he was really always pushing for a cure, even as the disease was impacting him. I also should say, when we were seeing him during that stage where the Alzheimer's was really getting to him, he still remembered my name. Yes, that was very interesting. He would say, "There's my little buddy Alex. There's my little buddy Alexander." And that moment will forever stick out to me as we continue to mourn the loss of Buddy Harrelson and remember his life and celebrate his life. I want to take you to the stage in about 2004, when our writer for Sports Night at the Viscardi Center, Steven Schneider, wrote this big skit with Ed Charles, Buddy Harrelson, and yours truly. And I was donning the number 41, Tom Terrific's number, Tom Seaver. And the fun we had on that stage, I'll never forget it, because Buddy Harrelson was coaching Ed Charles, his teammate, in 1969, through the lines at Viscardi. See, that was the Buddy I knew. The Buddy Harrelson I knew and my dad knew was the fun, the always welcoming, always inviting. I didn't fawn over him as a Met legend. I just saw him as a personal family friend. He welcomed my dad and I into the Ducks fold like it was seamless. And it all started because of the Viscardi Center's connection, and it all started because Buddy Harrelson gave his time to the Viscardi Center year in and year out. And he donned the Viking helmets, and he donned crazy costumes, whatever it was that he would do, he fulfilled it. And he had fun doing it. And he was always fun. And he always, welcomed us as family. But I learned a lot from him beyond just the baseball world. I learned how he was as a person behind home plate. At one of the first Ducks games he ever took us to, behind home plate, he sat there and signed autograph after autograph for all the fans that wanted to come and see him. And oh my God, it's Buddy Harrelson, a legend. But here he was, Sharpie after Sharpie, wearing out each Sharpie, signing for 7 innings straight. Any memorabilia that they had, bobbleheads, baseballs, jerseys, it was really something to watch. And to see that, and to see how he operated, stood out to me in the years I got to know Buddy Harrelson. And whenever we went to the ballpark, he always said, call me for tickets. We did. We ended up there. And we'd always go down in the dugout, and he'd stop and take a picture, and he'd see us for a few minutes, and he'd always check in on schoolwork and everything like that. I mean, here was a guy who was part of a team in 1969 that was larger than life. Yet Buddy Harrelson made an impact that on my own life, on my dad's life, on millions of people's lives. That was beyond the baseball field. So we could talk about his stats as a player. We could talk about the 1973 brawl he had with Pete Rose. But I kind of like coming in with that other perspective of, hey, he also was in the community as well. And I could tell you that. He was a big supporter of the Viscardi Center. He was a big supporter of kids in the community. He was a big supporter of Suffolk County beyond just building a championship-winning team. He got it. He understood it. And I would say when they decided to break ground, if you will, in Central Islip, New York, on what's now called Fairfield Properties Ballpark, I would say that changed the lives of so many. The employees that worked for him, the legend of Bob Atone, those like Jason Linnick who get to be the voice of the Ducks game in and game out, season after season. And those behind the scenes that I get to work with every year at the State Mutual All-Star Game. Even that, Buddy created that opportunity by just being there. Jimmy Rose was able to take that Long Island State Mutual League and do the All-Star Game at Fairfield Properties Ballpark. And all of these people I mentioned, whether it was Kara, TJ Rubino, Jimmy, they all carry on that legacy of Buddy Harrelson. So, while he will be mourned as a Met legend and a Ducks legend, he should also be remembered as someone who gave back. And gave back his time, his energy, his love of people, right up to the end. When I learned that Buddy was in a home, if you will, assisted living home, that was kind of sad. And I pray that he lived out his days the best he could while dealing with Alzheimer's. Because that is a tough disease. And he had a very supportive family behind him as well. They showed up at the retirement ceremony in 2018. I mean, look at Ray Navarrete. Okay, Ray Navarrete is now a guy who's passing on the legacy that he created at Duck Stadium, thanks to Buddy Harrelson. He's passing on with the Coach Ray brand and the kids. You know, he's coaching kids now. But that all started because he got that chance with the Ducks. I firmly believe that. He was an excellent player. And then look at what Buddy Harrelson was able to do for those who were former major leaguers. Many of them came back to play on the Ducks. I remember Vlad Guerrero was a big player on the Ducks at one point. Edgardo Alfonso, he played for them. Did he manage a little bit? I forget if he managed or not, but he definitely played for them. I mean, these guys would come back and play on the Ducks, and that gave them a second life after the major leagues. That was the power of three. But I love that the power of 3 and the number 3 and the Man of War number 3 has impacted millions. That's why I'm releasing it at 3 o'clock today. Because if we just lived our lives in the number of 3, doing things repetitively 3 times a day, or manifesting things, 3 times a charm, that type of thing. And yes, it does relate to Nikola Tesla's 369 theory. Then that we could be empowered by that number of 3. I believe so anyway. And we could just use that inspiration that Buddy Harrelson, who not only wore number 3, but made an impact while they're wearing that number. And I believe he had manifested a lot wearing that number of 3. And we too, by doing things 3 times, 6 times, 9 times, or any factor of 3, can manifest as well. And I was just thinking here of other stories. Probably Buddy. I mean, he was always there for us and for the Viscardi Center, and even for the Irish American youth team. They doled out a bunch of tickets for us, which was great to be part of that night. And getting to meet Lou Ford is pretty cool because he's now manager of the Ducks. And Lou Ford became the oldest player in the Atlantic League professional baseball world to hit a homer last year at the age of 47. Now he'll be a manager player. And I think this year, especially for the Ducks, with the new fresh face as manager and the loss of Buddy, I think they're going to be inspired this year to win not only the first half and the second half, but the whole thing. And do it for Buddy, right? And my favorite hashtag that came out of that retirement ceremony was "Thank you, Buddy." And so, though we never had him on this podcast, I believe I made it known in 2018 how much we thank Buddy for all the impact he made on and off the field. And that impact cannot be duplicated by anybody else. Because Buddy Harrelson had a way of making you feel included and loved, young and old, and part of his family too. He included the Viscardi family in his family. And he made that known every time he was there. And through him, because he showed up, I believe he's helped impact the Viscardi Center's growth. He's helped impact the numerous kids that have graduated the Viscardi Center and the Viscardi School. And how cool is that? I think it's pretty special how him showing up was just was a big part of the impact made for the Viscardi Center and the kids that graduated from there. And we've got to honor him well at Sports Night this year. I pray we do. Because he was a cornerstone. A cornerstone to the growth of the Henry Viscardi School. And the graduating classes of yore. And that cannot be forgotten, and that will not be forgotten on this podcast. He carried on what Dr. Viscardi did. He got what Dr. Viscardi was doing to empower kids with disabilities. He understood that. That's why he showed up every year the Viscardi Center. And yes, this hits me because my dad and I would take trip after trip after trip out to the Central Islip ballpark. I mean, it was a 20-minute walk there and back, and we would go on the summer hot days on my rollerblade. He was walking. We would come back late at night, and that was intense. But we did it because we loved being around Buddy. We loved being around the Ducks. We loved being around that environment. I mean, Bob Batone saying Duck fans. I mean, come on. There was nothing like that either. And that was the environment created by Buddy Harrelson. And I know there were others, but I think Buddy Harrelson alone helped create that environment. And with that being said, I pray the Ducks continue to be that inclusive, welcoming environment. I pray that the Viscardi Center remembers him well this year. And I pray for the family of Buddy Harrelson. And I thank him, as I'm sure he and my dad are talking it up there. But I thank him for including my dad and I in a lot over these last 20-something years, both at Viscardi and at the Duck Stadium. We miss you, Bud. And I say once again, in this 3 o'clock hour, thank you, buddy.